Hi, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to do an oil change on a 2003 GMC Sierra with the 4.8 and four-wheel drive. I have it running outside. I'm going to pull it in and then we'll get started. Alright, we shut the engine off. The oil's nice and hot. We're going to go underneath the truck and we're going to take the drain plug out so we can start draining the oil. I got my pan underneath the truck already. It's a 50 millimeter socket, and we're just going to use a 3/8 drive ratchet. Alright, so right here is our engine drain plug. That's the oil pan. We can drain the oil out of the engine. That's broke free, and now it should just come right out. And then at the same time, we're going to loosen off the oil filter as well. Alright, so I'm just going to put a rake so I get a little better grip on it. It shouldn't be too tight. It's broke free. Make sure our oil pan is underneath it. And we're just going to let it drain for a second there. And then we'll pull it the rest of the way out. Alright, and now we got the oil filter off as well. We're going to let everything drain for a few minutes. And then we'll start getting everything back together. Alright, while we're letting it drain, we're going to pop the hood. And we're going to open the oil cap on the engine. You can do that before you start draining the oil too. That might be a little better, less chance of getting any type of airlock, but we're going to open it up now while we're getting ready with everything else, and we'll help to make sure everything drains out. Alright, so there's our 4.8, a small little V8, and then right here is our oil filler spout. We're going to pull that off. That's your transmission dipstick, that's your oil dipstick, your engine coolant reserve, and then over here we got our brakes. That's where we put our brake fluid in, and then down in here is our power steering pump. And it's winter time here in Canada. So if you notice when I pulled the oil cap off, there's a little bit of moisture in there. That is not that I have engine coolant or anything leaking to the engine. It's just condensation because it's winter time. So that's pretty normal up in this area. Alright, so we got our new oil filter, a new oil here. We also got the drain plug. So on the drain plug on these trucks, the end of it's a little magnet, so any fine metal pieces or anything will get stuck there, and it's normal to have just a little bit there because there's regular wear and tear on a running engine, and things will wear a bit. If you see any like big chunks instead of just really fine stuff, then like any shavings or an excessive amount, then you have something failing in your engine. But just a small amount, that's just regular wear and tear, and it's nothing to be worried about. It's pretty normal. So we have that cleaned off, so that's ready to go back in. And then the filter, it's a MPH or MOPH 3506. And that's what we're going to put in. So when you take your old filter off, there's this rubber on here. And once in a blue moon, it will stick to your engine instead of staying on the oil filter. And if that happens and you don't notice it, you'll end up leaking a ton of oil. So you want to make sure that this is here and you'll be okay. As far as oil filters go, with this truck, I'm not the original owner. So I just usually buy whatever's on sale. The guy that had it before me said he sometimes put conventional in, sometimes synthetic, and switched back and forth. So I'm just putting conventional in, and it's winter time, and I mainly just drive this in the winter, so I'm putting 530 in. If it was summertime, I'd be putting 1030, but since it's winter time and I only really drive it in the winter, I'm putting 530 in it. So one good thing to do is kind of pre-fill your oil filter. This way it's already full, so when you fire up the engine, it's not taking as long to fill up the oil filter. And then, you know, you're getting lubrication quicker. And it's surprising how much fluid it actually takes. You can add some in a couple times before it's actually almost full. And then I like to take my finger and just put a little bit of oil on that rubber, just like so. I'll give it just a little bit more. So now we're going to go back underneath the truck and we're going to put our oil filter on. When you put it on, you don't refine, you just go just kind of snug, and it should be good. If you go too tight, it's real awful trying to get it off. And then we're going to put our drain plug back in too, and then we'll be done underneath there. But before we put the filter or the drain plug in, we're going to wipe up any excess oil, clear any dirt out of the way to make sure we're getting a good seal, and get rid of that old crummy oil. So we're going to go underneath and do that now, and then we'll be done underneath there. Alright, so we're going to wipe our drain plug hole. Make sure we got everything away from there. And you'll see that there's still a little bit of oil kind of coming out, but it's almost impossible to have nothing. You've got to wait hours for that. Now we can put our plug in. Alright, that's good. And we're going to clean where the oil filter goes. And then right there's what it looks like where the oil filter goes on. Right in there. That gives you a bit of an idea. Alright, now we can slip this on. Then we're just going just snug. And we should be done underneath here. Now we're going to make sure that our funnel's clean. Now we're going to start dumping our oil in. So when you start dumping your oil in, I like to hold the container sideways. Because when you hold it sideways, it pours nice, it doesn't get an airlock. Where if you hold it like this, for example, see how it's kind of chugging? But if you hold it sideways, you don't get that airlock, or even with the hole slightly up, and it will pour much better. So we're not going to pour all of this in right away. We're going to pour about 3/4 of it in, and then we're going to start checking our level on our dipstick. And then once we get on our dipstick, so we know we have oil in there, we're going to fire it up and let it suck the oil in into the filter. We'll let it run for about 30 seconds, and then we'll shut it back down, recheck it again, and then get it right to the full line from there. That should be enough in there right now. So right now it looks like we're about 3/4 of a quart low. I'm just gonna triple check. With clean oils, it's always hard to see exactly where you are sometimes. Oh, we're lower than that, so we need to put more oil in. So right now we're down about 1/2 quart. I'm going to fire it up and let it suck it into the pump, so then we should be able to fine tune it from there. We'll put our lid back on just to make sure that nothing splashes out of there, but it shouldn't. And when you fire it up, it's good to watch your oil pressure gauge and make sure that you still have oil pressure and everything. So if you have really, really high oil pressure, like higher than is normal, or no oil pressure, you know something went wrong with the filter most likely, or the oil pump failed at that time. So we're going to let that sit for a minute and let the oil settle back down so we can get a more accurate level. When I fired it up, it took about 3-4 seconds for my oil pressure gauge to start working. So that'd be about the time that it would take for the oil filter to fill up with fluid the remainder of the way. So if you had an empty oil filter, if you didn't dump anything in it at all, that time would be even longer. But since we filled it as close as we could to the top before we put it on, that helps saving some time of your engine running, because that filter is already full or close as we can get. So it's just trying to basically fill whatever gap is left in there, which would be very minimal, and then it's starting to move fluid, where the other way is running and running, trying to fill that oil filter before it can start moving it into the engine where we want it. And then if you give, you don't want to give it a lot of gas. If you give it just a little bit of gas, you should be able to see that oil pressure gauge climb up. And then when you release the gas, it should drop back down to a normal area. But even though the engine's hot, the oil's cold, so you don't want to rev it way up or anything. Just enough gas to see the needle move. Alright, so we're down to the add line. So we're going to dump more from that container. No, it's been a while since I've done an oil change on this truck. I think it takes about the whole container. There's not much left in there. So we're going to dump the rest of this in. And this is a 5-liter container, or 5.28 quarts. So we're just going to let that sit for a minute, and then we'll recheck our level. Alright, so that put us about halfway up the range. So we're down about half a quart or half a liter. So I have a little more oil here, so I'm going to dump that in, and then we should be good. Alright, that's pretty good. I'm just below the full line, so I'm going to call that good. And then after I drive it for a day or two, I like to double check it, just in case it did drop in. So I just like to make sure it's good. But looking at the dipstick, we're like just below the top hole there. We're right about there, so we're down like 1/8 of a quart, so we're gonna call that good. We'll put our oil cap on, and then that's it. Oil change done. So when you do your oil changes, it's best to do your oil change on a hot engine, and there's 2 main reasons why you want to do it on a hot engine. Reason number 1 is that when the engine's hot, the oil's hot. So then when you go to drain the oil's thinner, and it will drain better. You'll get more old oil out than if you did it on a cold engine. And then the oil's thicker and it sticks more to the side of the internals of the engine, and you don't get as much oil draining out. So warm oil drains better, so that's reason number 1. And then reason number 2, if you do have any dirt or grime or anything that's settled in the bottom of your oil pan, if you take it out for a drive first and give it a good run, anything in there is more likely to get worked into the oil, and then when you drain the oil, it's more likely to exit your engine. Where if you do it on a cold engine and it's been sitting, any debris or flakes or anything that could possibly be in your engine for whatever reason, it's settled at the bottom of your oil pan most likely, or any other low values or crevices, and all that gunk is just going to sit there and eventually build up and maybe cause you issues. So it's better to have everything more likely worked into the oil, so then when it does drain, you're hopefully getting all that bad stuff out of your engine if there is any bad stuff in there, instead of it just sitting and collecting in all the nooks and crannies. So when you finish your oil change, it's a good idea to write down your mileage and the date when you did it, so you can try to do it periodically. On this truck, I do it every 5,000 kilometers. I don't drive it that much, so I don't go by the date as much as I more so just go by the kilometers. And it's also a good time to do your to grease all your grease fittings. I have another video on that where I showed the all the grease points on these trucks. So if you're not aware of where the grease fittings points are, episode 18 will tell you. So go check that out if you need to. And it's also not a bad idea to check your levels in your front and rear differential, as well as your transfer case. And that's episode 17 if you need to see how to check that and what you're looking for. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification button. And check me out on Instagram at Clargo Garage. Have a great night.